Hello, I'm excited to welcome you to another recap. Today, I'm gonna be showing you my game against 1828 opponent. Let's see how it went. And before I begin, I'll tell you this was a very exciting game, so stay tuned to the end of the game. So I started with d4. Again, I'm trying to explore new openings, so I decided to, I usually play e4, and if you look at my game database, I mean, of course, the only move I played in my entire life. I played London at some point, but I decided this year, okay, it's time for a change because, I'm good enough that, I can learn new openings, I can play them in the board chess game, I can win games, and, I proved it earlier in this tournament. Go check out other recaps. He plays knight f6. And the same way as in my, I believe it was first game or second game of the event, my opponent placed the setup with kind of king's Indian, but then transposed to some c6 d5 system. So I played knight d5. Knight d5 is not a terrible move. I can castle first and then play knight d5. I can play queen b3 and then put pressure on d5. But okay, knight d5 is good. Knight d7, I go castle, takes, and now knight g4, attacking the pawn on e5. In the game that happened back in the third round, what happened was my opponent, I think, played d takes e4, and after knight c4 he played knight b6, knight d5, bishop e6, and after e4 I got a good advantage. And it was actually very good. So he in the game knight c4 was like happened, and I believe I took and played rook e1. Something like this happened, or I think, oh no, I played knight f3, keeping the pieces on the board because he had less space. But okay, let's get back to the game. Knight d5 takes, and now knight g4. I don't really want to protect this pawn. I play c takes d5. Now knight d5, f4 is not really a good move. Yes, the idea is simple. You want to play d takes c6 next, but here you have queen b6, very simple move, and then let's say king h1, knight g4, and knight comes to f2. So you don't really want to expose your own king. So I play queen b3. My idea behind queen b3 is that I'm about to bring my rook to d1, and I'm about to put some pressure on d file, and specifically on the c6 and b7 pawns on the queen side. So it is actually a bit complicated to play with black because, computer shows a slight advantage to white, but if you look from black's perspective, like you flip the board around and you're like, what should I do? I can play queen b6, yes, I want to offer him a queen trade, but there is no proof that this position will be any good, especially in endgame. Like, still, d takes e6, d takes b7 ideas, it's tough. So queen b6, I go rook d1, I first protect the pawn on d5, now he goes bishop d7, he's trying to protect, and here I had a very strong bishop e3, but I didn't play it. So bishop e3, I'm not sure, for whatever reason I didn't like it. I thought bishop f4, developing the bishop here, and bishop f4 with the idea that queen b6 and bishop c7 to attack the pawn. So he finally goes knight g4. Now if I ignore the threat, there will be queen f2, so I have to take. After a takes b6, I go h3 attacking the knight f6, and I go e4. And once again, if you look at the evil bar, if you look at the variation, plus 0.2, again, not a huge advantage. But from black's perspective, it is a bit unpleasant to move your pieces around. So he goes rook c8, and now I play g4. g4, can't say it's the best move. D takes c6, according to the computer, is slightly better. And then if bishop takes c6, there is knight d5. I actually considered something like this, but I can't say I liked it, even though probably this is somewhat... bishop e5 is a mistake here, d6 is best, and now you're kind of putting and exploiting both bishops on long diagonals. But okay, g4 was played with the sole reason of playing e5, so that knight h5 will not be a threat. So h6 and now e5. The idea now that knight d5 is losing on the spot due to bishop d5 takes knight d5, and now this fork, king f8, knight b6, and there will be 3 pieces under attack, so black loses the game. Of course, he didn't play it, he goes knight h7. And here I kind of sense that I'm already a lot better, and I gotta be extremely careful. But if I play correctly, I should have an edge. So I play d takes c6. I thought it as a good move, because after takes I go knight d5 with the same idea of knight b6, knight e7, and that way I thought, okay, bishop d5, which happened in the game, I'll play rook d5, or bishop d5, and I have 2 bishops. And now the question is how to take. Of course, now you see bishop capture is best. What I didn't like about bishop capture is rook c2 immediately, and then You know, how do you protect b2 pawn? That was my question throughout the game, and I couldn't really figure out like what would be the best. Rook c1 maybe. Apparently e6 was passed, and now if let's say I'm not sure, I'm threatening takes f7, so I'm not sure what would be the best. Maybe f5 to keep bishop active and kind of pointing towards b2. And now rook c1, and if rook b2, you take the pawn, you play rook c7. Now 2 pawns are under attack. There's bishop f6, and now bishop c1, which is extremely wild move to make. I would never made it. I would rather play something like bishop h6. I would rather play rook b7 or bishop e7, but of course not bishop c1. But yeah, I mean, to me it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's some computer line. Bishop d6 is one of the lines to make sure that you know, now basically king is wide open and it's tough to defend. So if rook e8, I believe bishop f7. Oh, rook c8, look at this. And now if takes, this takes, and you have to give up a lot of material because rook g8 would have been a checkmate. But I decided to play rook d5 because now after rook c2, I have rook b5 protecting b2 and threatening b6 pawn. So I thought it's gonna be good. He plays rook a5, honestly the move that I completely missed in my calculation. That's why rook d5 idea was actually probably bad. Rook d7 was slightly more accurate, but I believe no. Rook b5, rook a5, rook b6, and now g5 is a blunder. Now my position becomes winning. I'm not sure why he didn't take on e5 immediately. I'm not sure what he was scared of, because let's say takes. I want to see would have still played something like this, and then no, but now I'm not on time. So you'll see what happened in the game. The idea is just to capture on b7 and create 2 passed pawns. So honestly, what I calculated b4, but of course b4 I just didn't like that he takes my pawn. Apparently there's bishop d5, and somehow this is good, which is mind-blowing. What if king f8? Oh, bishop h6 and rook j8. Oh my goodness, I didn't even see it. He would have probably captured this pawn. Oh my god, I mean, I didn't see it. Now bishop d4 is best. I mean, this probably he would have found it, and now rook a2, and then he takes move to. Yes, that makes a lot more sense. So yeah, tough to understand why he didn't. I also consider bishop e3 as one of the alternative. Bishop h6, I'm not that sure. G5, and then there's rook d1. So yes, there are some options. Rook b2 was probably slightly more accurate, and then rook d1, and you're trying to exploit. And if bishop g7, yeah, probably that's why he played g5. Can you just allow me to take this h6 pawn first? But okay, I mean, it was just a mistake. Bishop g3, now he takes on e5, but now it's too late because I play b4. But what was a lot better is this. And now after rook e2, I play rook b7, rook f2, and now bishop e4. Let's say this. I'm actually wondering why not rook e2, a5, and now cannot take. And if knight f6, I'm just curious, bishop h1. And the problem is pawn promotes. And if rook b2, I think it's just too late. Takes a6. Yes, I would have won the game. Yeah, I actually was hesitating between a4 and b4. Yeah, but it's like, man, it's like, what is going on? Like, could I play a5 first? And then rook f2, and then bishop b7. That's pretty much what happened in the game. I'll show you in a sec. But yeah, I mean, b4 was apparently wrong. Rook e2, a4, rook f2, bishop b7, knight f6, and now I go a5. So here suddenly it turns out, let's say e6, I immediately win due to rook f1. And if rook h2, I play rook f6, and I'm in a very good spot. There is no danger for white whatsoever. My pawn just promotes. So that's why he and let's say if e6 and I don't play rook f1 and I waste time on a6, there is knight d5. And now rook g2 is threatening, and if takes, I mean, I'm just not on time. So I can potentially play something like rook f6, but you can just basically ignore. And then let's say rook h2 threatening checkmate. And if king a1, I mean, you kind of continue. You can continue this way and then just come back. And there is no way I can win, even though my pawn is about to promote. So I decided to take on f6. Bishop h1 was slightly more accurate, but what I didn't like about this position is I still think e6 was somewhat good, and then let's say a6, there's knight d5, and if now I move my rook, let's say, to b7, there's knight f4, and I'm losing the game actually. So there were some ways to lose, there were a lot of ways to win, but I decided rook f6. And guess what? This position is wild, because the way that black makes a draw here is by playing rook f6, then playing rook c7, then allowing to promote, but now they set up a fort. I mean, it's a mind-blowing position. I mean, rook f4, rook e4, and there is no way to make any progress. It's some type of fortress here. I mean, it's a bit crazy, but yeah, I mean, there's no real way to break through. I mean, if you trade one pair of rooks, it's probably that draw, just because the king starts walking around. There is no way with this king to get closer, so absolutely insane. But he plays king f6, and king f6 is the final blunder because I have a6. But final blunder, okay. Now we get to the interesting point. So I don't want to dive deep into what I was doing throughout the game, because you know, I had other stuff going on, and I wasn't really focused on chess as much because I was looking at the clock and not at the position. But yeah, no excuses, I still gotta win this position. So I play b6, I play a7, and king c5. I realize now if I promote, what happens is it's probably gonna be a draw. I promoted. I don't want to dive deep into it. I considered a lot of other moves, but not the move which wins the game here. So bishop d5, I considered some bishop c6, but bishop c6 doesn't really do anything because king b6, and I still have to play same thing. So yeah, unfortunately, the only move that I didn't see and I didn't even look at, bishop a6. I mean, you give me some time over the board, I mean, I would have found it. For sure, because now b7 and pawn promotes, and now it seems like actually that you know, it's kind of the same position as we reached with two rooks. But the problem here is that the king is on c5 and not on g7. If king is on g7, you know, some rook d7 thing, and it is a fortress again, because rook eventually goes to e6 and king starts moving around. There is no way to make progress at all. While here, the king will have to spend some time getting back while we start taking pawns one by one, and it is a win. So I promoted, and now there was no real way to win, but why? So you might be wondering why. It's because h8 square is different from h3, so it was extremely tough. You might be saying, oh, but you have 3-4 pawn, but there is no way to break through. So h5, and it is basically, I couldn't really play on. I mean, if I get back from the diagonal, I couldn't do it. So g takes h5, h6, I tried to play around. So here, just one last step. Let's say king g4, e4, this, king f7, king f2, and let's say he plays king f8 back, he stands for a sack, I win. Why I win? Because I take g4, this, g3, king f3, king f7, this, king f6, I go bishop f5, and now if king f7 back, I go bishop h7, king f6, and now, okay, I could play king g4 right away, but now basically the idea is you move king back, and now bishop g6, h7 actually, okay, stalemate, but this king f8 and h7, pawn promotes and white wins. So, but he played perfectly. I decided not to kinda do anything here. I could go all the way down basically here with let's say king f3. If he plays king f8, again I win the game. But if he plays g3, of course I kinda maybe have to do this way: g2, king f2, and now e3, king g2, e2, king f2, e1, king 1, and now basically my king is too far from f4 square. So king f6, I kinda have to play this, and king f5. He goes back trying to get to h8, and now I kinda, if I go king f2, then there's king g5, and you know, he basically takes h6. Okay guys, that's a bit unfortunate. I couldn't win as far as accuracy goes in this game. 92.6 from me, 92.8. He actually played with a higher accuracy, but as you can see, he didn't really have a chance. At least that's, I mean, doesn't really help my mood because I didn't win the game. But yeah, one blunder from him, probably this g5, yeah, because then he allowed me to win the game. But yeah, it was unpleasant to play for sure. I didn't really use my chances throughout the game the right way, and performance a bit weird, but it is what it is. 24, 25, 50. Okay, Hope you enjoyed. And throughout the next 6 days, you're gonna be seeing the recaps from my over the board chess tournament 6 rounds. It's gonna be exciting to watch. See you soon. Bye bye.